In 1990, Jean-Marc Bosman was coming to the end of his deal with RFC Liège, and he was offered an improved deal by Dunkirk in France. However, at this time, a player could not move at the end of their contract on a free unless the club agreed for them to do so, which meant that the club would want an agreed fee for the player even though he's out of contract. Liège demanded a fee, and the deal fell through ultimately. Liège cut Bosman's wages by 75%, with their reasoning behind this being that he was no longer a first-team player. In 1993, Bosman started legal action that would lead to a European Court of Justice suing for restraints of trading. However, Bosman was not the first player to try and increase the power that players had over the freedom of movement. In 1959, George Estham took Newcastle to court in a ruling which helped reduce retain and transfer rule, which previously allowed clubs to retain the registration of a player, thus stopping them from moving while also refusing to pay if the player handed in a transfer request. The case took 2 years to complete, starting from 1993 and finally concluding in 1995. The case was taken out against the Belgian FA, RFC Liège, and UEFA suing for restraint of trade. One of the key points of the case was the signing of the Treaty of Rome, which guaranteed the movement of players anywhere in Europe. And on the 15th of December 1995, the court ruled that the current system in place restricted the freedom of movement of workers, which was prohibited by the Article 59 of the Rome Treaty, which meant that Jean-Marc Bosman had won his case.
Form of slavery, yes it is. I'm saying, I don't want to sound too harsh here, but let the chairmans of current football clubs get into the real world. They want to sign a player, they sign him, give him a contract, give him a 3-year, give him a 5, give him a 10-year contract. But when it's over, it's over. They can't get any more money for that player.
What did the Bosman ruling do for football? The Bosman ruling allowed a player to leave a club on a free transfer as soon as his contract expired, meaning that they had leverage to demand huge signing-on fees and salaries from new clubs to make up for the absent transfer fee. Players coming to the end of their contract could also ask for more money from their current club, who hopefully would fear losing that player on a free if demands were not met. The power was handed to the player, in turn giving the rise to the agent. So, who benefited most from the Bosman ruling? British success in European Cup competitions. The British clubs before the Bosman ruling had to field weakened teams in cup competitions, as UEFA quotas on foreign players included Scottish and Welsh players as well, which gave British clubs a big disadvantage. After the Bosman ruling, Manchester United won the 1999 Champions League, featuring only 5 English players out of 13 in the final. Rich clubs. Big wealthy clubs were now the only teams that could afford the best footballers, as their massively inflated wages used to keep them from leaving less small clubs unable to compete. Instead of going to smaller league clubs in the same country for rising stars, the wealthy teams were broadening their horizons and bringing out of contract foreign stars and paying their agents rather than the smaller clubs for their youth. Okay, sufferers of the Bosman rulings. Relegated football clubs. Clubs trying to keep hold of their rising stars and best players gave them long, lucrative contracts. This left some clubs paying large sums of money for players who did not live up to their expectations. Also, clubs that had been relegated with wage structures could not possibly afford these wage structures once they went down to the Championship, i.e. Leeds United. Fans. As clubs paid more to attract bigger names and their wage structures bulged, revenues had to be maximised, so the cost of tickets increased and television packages became available. Football became a money-making industry with the influx of foreign players. The foreign market developed and the biggest teams cashed in. Instead of playing pre-season games against lower league opposition to widen their fan base, teams such as Manchester United went on tours of Asia and Africa, leaving their home-based fans in other parts of England unable to watch their stars. Examples of players who moved on a Bosman transfer: Steve McManaman, Sol Campbell, Cafu, Edgar Davids, Patrick Kluivert, Brian Laudrup, Michael Ballack and Robert Lewandowski.